Big time card coming up this Friday. It's the return of the PFL, and it's a really interesting organization that Matt's had some thoughts about in the past. But we have a Striker's Paradise in our main event, so you can get up for this one. It's Anthony Showtime Pettis, the former UFC champ, the last man to win a fight with WEC, and he's taking on Cassius Clay Collard. And for Collard, it's really been the headlines that have been grabbed outside of the cage and in the boxing ring. He's had a very, very decent run, I guess I would say, with boxing. 9-4-3. Maybe not the greatest record, but he was on a little bit of a run between 2019 and 2020. At the end of the last year, in December and in February this year, a couple of losses by decision. So it kind of derailed the boxing for a little bit, but he's entering the cage for the first time in about 2 years, and you look at the 5-on-in for Collard, it is good. I mean, 4-1. It's better than 3-2 for Anthony Pettis. You look at the level of competition on the regional scene. He knocked out Troy Dennison about 3 years and 3 months ago. He beat Carson Hardman. That's a good name. Submitted him. Lost to Derek Minner by submission. That's going to happen.
If you're going to lose to Derek Minner, that's normally how.
Beat Lucas Montoya, and then he beat Randall Wallace. And listen, for Clay Collard, you know what you're going to get. But again, he's been away for 2 years, boxing exclusively. The last time he boxed was in February, and we knew Clay Collard was going to be included into the PFL's lightweight season, so it's not much of a surprise. It is a bit of a surprise to me that they gave him Anthony Pettis, and I threw down the last weigh-in. I mean, 154.6 you'll see on certain sites, 167 whether it's boxing or MMA. For Pettis' last fight, he weighed in at 170 on the nose, and he picked up a huge win over Alex Morono not that long ago, about 4 months ago. Before that, he beat Donald Cerrone. Wasn't the most exciting fight. Wasn't the fight that we expected. I'm just kidding. Pettis looked pretty good. He lost to CDF. He lost to Nate Diaz. He beat Wonder Boy. That was his fifth to last fight about 2 years ago. So that's a 5-on-in for Pettis. You know what you're going to get out of Collard. But the weird thing is, you look at the level of competition for Pettis, and for Collard, yeah, he had that one fight against Derek Minner, but the last high-level guys that he fought, like big names, was when he was in the UFC, 2014, 2015, lose to Max Holloway by finish in his UFC debut. He was really young, though. I mean, again, 2014, and he's 28 now. He ended up beating a name that you recognize in Alex White. He lost to Gabriel Benitez, and he lost to Thiago Traitor. It's weird. It's weird.
Thank you for Clay Collard's life story. Now, here's the thing. This is a terrible fight for Clay Collard. It really is. And just go back to when Conor McGregor fought Dustin Poirier. And people were like, oh, Conor McGregor, he spent 6 months boxing. Now all he does is box in the cage. And everyone was like, oh, he's just a boxer now. Look at his stance. He fought a guy who mainly only boxes in MMA, but throws a few kicks. And those kicks gave him a lot of trouble. So we're dealing with a guy who was a good boxer, a great MMA fighter, and then he made his boxing style a little bit more into his MMA style. All Anthony Pettis does is kick, and Clay Collard hasn't seen a kick in about 2 years. This just stylistically is a very tough matchup for Clay Collard. And for Collard, this is the issue. You're not even asking him to fight a fighter who has a style similar to what he's been seeing in the boxing ring. If you asked him to fight just even... not in the same weight class, but just use a name, Calvin Kattar, or even a Josh Emmett, guys who really are boxing primary MMA fighters who are going to go in there and mainly use their hands to set up all their offense, I'd say, hey, Clay Collard has a chance. He's fighting a guy who has good boxing, great power, really good speed, and more kicks than most MMA fighters know. And the fact that Anthony Pettis does everything with his kicks. He's not a fighter who he'll throw a combination to end it with a kick. His kicks are actively involved in his combination. So for Clay Collard, I understand he is not just a boxer, and that's just the profession he's been doing for the last couple of years. But even if you've been boxing, those are the looks that you're used to. You're used to boxers. You're used to big gloves that you can cover up a lot with and that are really hard to get clean shots off when using them defensively. Anthony Pettis is really, really good at MMA boxing. So for Clay Collard, I just don't know if he's going to incorporate the takedown, if somehow he can hold Anthony Pettis down and wear him out to the point where Pettis won't have that pop on his shots. But I see Pettis being the much faster out of these two, and I think he's the much harder hitter out of the two as well.
Anthony Pettis is a big favorite in this fight, and for me, again, Pettis moving down to 55, maybe Collard, maybe he's got a little bit of an advantage that way, but that's the only thing I can think of. Big difference in age. Collard just turned 28. For Anthony Pettis, he just turned 34, and that's still young, but he's not young in fight years. I mean, he's had absolute war since the WEC days. You got to focus on this, though. Again, you talk about Anthony Pettis setting everything up with the kicks, and we talk about which martial art is the best for MMA. Is it boxing? No, it's good to have a boxing, at least some boxing acumen, I should say. Who's the best boxer you can think of in MMA? Holly Holm, maybe? Really? Like, best pure boxer
Max
in MMA?
Holloway.
Izu Agono, maybe? Max Holloway? All right. But we continue on. There are good boxers in MMA.
Holly
But you have to be well-rounded. Wrestling, right up there. You've got, Sonda. You've got Sambo, Jiu-Jitsu. For Anthony Pettis, he has that Taekwondo background, and you never hear of anybody in MMA being good at Taekwondo. Valerie Lareda? I mean, there's not a whole lot of fighters that can incorporate Taekwondo well enough in an MMA fight. Anthony Pettis does it to perfection. If I think that TJ Dillashaw, at one point, I still think it in the back of my mind, is the best MMA wrestler, and you can argue me till the cows come home, but I still think he is. But Anthony Pettis, the best at Taekwondo and MMA at the highest level. So we'll see how Pettis makes out against Collard, but if you did go back, and we certainly did, to watch the Morono fight, Pettis, kick heavy, kick heavy, kick heavy. And that was a statement performance knowing he was probably going to leave the UFC anyway. But if you can do that against a primary boxer in Alex Morono, who, yeah, he's a good grappler, he has decent wrestling, but Morono sets things up with the hands. If you want a fun fight of his, go watch his fight against Max Griffin. Exactly how he did it. But Pettis, to me, should run over poor Clay Collard.
It's the speed for Anthony Pettis. That's the thing. You normally see power can somewhat diminish as you get older. Speed's normally the first thing that goes, though. But for Pettis, even as he gets close to 235, he's still the fastest guy in the cage when he's in there. Like, even when he did fight Cowboy, even when he fought Poirier and Ferguson, all those killers on his crazy run in the UFC, Pettis was still normally the faster guy in there. And now you're asking... Pettis has tools in his arms and his feet. You're basically asking a guy who has half the tools to now fight a guy who's much faster than him. This is a very hard fight for Clay Collard. That's it, plain and simple.
Yeah, it is a really tricky one. And if we have a look at the odds, Matt, Anthony Pettis, a big favorite. Open to minus 360. Wish I got him there. He's a minus 614 right now. For Clay Collard, open to plus 260. He's a plus 416. And if we have a look at the Tapology votes, and again, it's a surprise to us as it's a surprise to you.
Is it a surprise?
521 of them because everybody's watching the PFL. 95% Pettis, 43% by decision, 17% by submission, 36% by knockout. For the 5% that have Collard, 50% by knockout. Matt, that's a very slim percentage of people in general. I like Pettis in this fight.
Yeah, by quite a bit. Probably by finish, too.
Matt, both of us going with Anthony Pettis to get the win in his PFL debut. It sounds as strange to me coming out of my mouth as hopefully it does to you at home listening, or if you're in the car or on the boat, on the lake, wherever you might be. Enjoy the fights. We got a big PFL card coming up this weekend. We're going to talk about it in depth as the show goes on. So hopefully you can stick around for that. Matt, keep locked in with Fight Night Picks as we always say. Let's get into it.